And we come now to 0 hour 30 Universal Time. In the news at this hour, the Israeli army says it has ousted Hezbollah militants from the important southern Lebanese village of Marun Aras, that is Marun Aras. General Benny Gantz said Israeli air and ground forces control the village, Hezbollah headquarters close to the Israeli-Lebanese border. Earlier, Israeli warplanes destroyed communication towers for television stations and wireless telephones in northern Lebanon. Hezbollah rockets wounded several people in the northern Israeli cities of Haifa, Carmel, and Nahariya. Several people were wounded. The United States is preparing an arms shipment to Israel as part of a weapons agreement approved last year. American Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice will begin a trip to the Middle East on Sunday to deal with the growing crisis in Lebanon. President Bush said Ms. Rice would use her trip to make clear that ending violence means answering Hezbollah and its supporters, Iran and Syria. In related news, an international meeting on Lebanon is to take place in Italy on Wednesday. Italian officials say establishing a ceasefire will be the first business discussed at the meeting. Britain criticized Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon. During a visit to Beirut, British official Kim Howells said the attacks should target Hezbollah, not the Lebanese people. The United Nations humanitarian chief says $100 million is needed to help prevent a humanitarian crisis in Lebanon. Jan Egeland says the violence has directly affected more than 500,000 people. He called the situation in the southern part of the country a very major crisis. On Friday, Israel dropped warnings that urged civilians to move about 30 kilometers north of the Israeli border. World governments continue to remove their citizens from Lebanon. More than 25,000 people have been taken to the nearby island of Cyprus. In Afghanistan, 2 bombings in the southern city of Kandahar on Saturday killed at least 9 people and wounded many others. A coalition spokesman said the first attacker crashed a car carrying explosives into a coalition vehicle. 2 soldiers from Canada were killed. Minutes later, a second attacker exploded a bomb. The explosion killed 6 Afghan civilians and the attacker. 27 others were wounded. A man named Yusuf Ahmadi claimed the Taliban was responsible for the bombings. Pakistani officials say pro-Taliban militants in a tribal area bordering Afghanistan have freed 4 soldiers taken hostage in April. The militants also are said to have extended a ceasefire by 1 month. On Friday, Pakistan released 32 men who had been in jail for from 5 months to 2 years. They were being held on suspicion of involvement in attacks on security forces in North Waziristan. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. The new Prime Minister of East Timor has offered not to punish those who freely surrender their weapons. Prime Minister José Ramos Horta warned that it was illegal to keep weapons at home. He announced the pardon to try to prevent more civil unrest. Last May, 21 people died and thousands fled their homes when a protest by former soldiers turned violent. Civilians later joined the protest. Chinese rescue workers have recovered the bodies of 15 miners. State media said the victims died after a mine flood in Guizhou province a week ago. 13 miners escaped the floods. 3 are still missing. Almost 6,000 Chinese miners died in mine accidents last year. Thousands of people in cities across Britain have protested against the Israeli military action in Lebanon. A march through central London had the largest numbers. Police estimate that about 7,000 people took part. Many of them carried Lebanese flags. British Muslim groups organized the protests Saturday. In Córdoba, Argentina, Cuban leader Fidel Castro and Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez led a demonstration criticizing the United States. Mr. Castro and Mr. Chavez had attended a meeting of the South American trading group Mercosur. About 15,000 students and other activists gathered at the University of Córdoba. The leaders blamed American policies for many of the problems of Latin America. And Sergei Gonchar of Ukraine won the next-to-last part of the Tour de France bicycle race on Saturday. But American rider Floyd Landis has recaptured the overall lead. Gonchar finished the time trial in 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 45 seconds. Landis finished third, 1 minute and 11 seconds behind. However, Landis now holds a 59-second lead over Oscar Pereiro of Spain in the overall competition. And so briefly now, here again is the major news of this hour. The Israeli army says it has ousted Hezbollah militants from an important southern Lebanese village. And in this news just in, Israeli aircraft have bombed Beirut and the port city of Sidon to the south. And the United Nations humanitarian chief says $100 million is needed to prevent a humanitarian crisis in Lebanon. And so ends the news in VOA Special English.